भारताय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीमष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वाम् अनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम् मूकं करोति वाचालं भङ्गुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवम् कायेन मनसा बुद्ध्या केवलैरिन्द्रियैरपि योगिनः कर्म कुर्वन्ति सङ्गं त्यक्त्वात्मशुद्धये युक्तः कर्मफलं त्यक्त्वा शान्तिमाप्नोति नैष्ठिकीम् अयुक्तः कामकारेण फले सक्तो निबध्यते सर्वकर्माणि मनसा सन्न्यस्यास्ते सुखं वशी नवद्वारे पुरे देहि नैव कुर्वन्न कारयन् न कर्तृत्वं न कर्माणि लोकस्य सृजति प्रभुः न कर्मफलसंयोगं स्वभावस्तु प्रवर्तते नादत्ते कस्यचित् पापं न चैव सुकृतं विभुः अज्ञानेनावृतं ज्ञानं तेन मुह्यन्ति जन्तवः ज्ञानेन तु तदज्ञानं येषां नाशितमात्मनः तेषामादित्यवज्ञानं प्रकाशयति तत्परम् तद्बुद्धयस्तदात्मानस्तन्निष्ठास्तत्परायणाः गच्छन्त्य पुनरावृत्तिं ज्ञाननिर्धूतकल्मषाः विद्याविनयसम्पन्ने ब्राह्मणे गविहस्तिनि शुनि चैव श्वपाके च पंडिता समदर्शिनः इहैव तैर्जितः सर्गो येषां साम्ये स्थितं मनः निर्दोषं हि समं ब्रह्म तस्माद् ब्रह्मणि ते स्थिता न प्रहृष्येत् प्रियं प्राप्य नोद्विजेत् प्राप्य चाप्रियं स्थिरबुद्धिरसम्मूढो ब्रह्मविद् ब्रह्मणि स्थितः। So this evening we'll continue with our study of the 5th chapter. We were on last time, we ended on verse 13, which ended a particular line of thinking or line of teaching, where Sri Krishna was teaching about the person who has the person who has practiced karma yoga, the state of the karma yogi, the accomplished karma yogin. And so verse 13 said, Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vashi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvanna karayan. So this says that the embodied person of self-control, having given up all actions mentally, remains happily in the body of 9 gates, the Navadvara, Deha, without doing or causing others to do anything at all. So the person who has attained to perfect self-control, again, this is talking about the person of self-mastery, that has attained to a high state of perfect self-control. That such a person of self-control, having given up all actions mentally, that is, the sense of doership, that I am the doer, I am the karta, I am the agent of action, I am the one who does. This is a task for me to do, I'm going to do it, and you stay away from it because this is my action, and I'm going to take credit for having done it and accept all of the praise and try to avoid all of the blame. And so that sense of being an agent of action, that I am the doer. So this person has given up that, having given up all actions mentally, that is, having given up the sense that I do anything. Happily in the body of 9 gates, the Navadvara, the Deha, the body of 9 gates. That is the various orifices in the body. It has been known in the Hindu tradition since ancient times as the city of 9 gates. Without doing, remains happily in the body of 9 gates without doing or causing others to do anything at all. That is, he has no sense of agentship, and not that he is the type of person who doesn't do anything himself, but orders others to do. No, it's not that either. Not that he sits easily and calmly because he's got everybody else doing everything for him. No, he doesn't have the sense of doing anything at all, nor the sense of causing others to do. So again, as I've used many times, because he's a very good example of it, Ramana Maharshi, the great saint of Tiruvannamalai, Arunachalam, in Tamil Nadu of the 20th century, born in the late 19th century and lived into the middle of the 20th century. He's the exemplar of the state of Astita Prajna. One who had no sense of doership whatsoever. From the time he was 16 until he died at around the age of 70, I forget exactly, but it was around 70, 71, 72, somewhere in there that he passed away. So from the time of his realization at the age of 16 until he died, he had no sense of being the doer, nor the sense of instructing others to do, though in the last many years of his life, he taught many people and also instructed people in things to do. He would guide the work in the kitchen, the cooking work for the ashram. He would instruct one of his disciples, Annamalai Swami, to do the construction work and come out to see how the construction work was going and guide him in construction work and so forth and what needed doing. And so from our perspective, he was constantly acting, except when he was sitting silently, which of course he did for a long period every day, sitting in the audience hall. But otherwise, he was quite active. And yet he had no sense of being the doer whatsoever. So that's what this is talking about. Not talking about a person who's decided, I don't want to do anything, so I'm just going to sit around. No, but one who has no sense of being the doer. So now we come to verse 14, where it begins to speak about the nature of the self. So why does he turn to the nature of the self here? Because in order to understand the nature of the karma yogi who has realized the self, we have to understand the nature of the self. Because understanding this, then we can begin to understand the state of the karma yogi. So he says, Nakartritvam nakarmani lokasya srujati prabhu nakarma palasam yogam swabhavastu pravartate. So here he's speaking, Sri Krishna is speaking of Prabhu, the Lord. But the commentators, the non-dualistic commentators, including our own Swamis like Swami Tapasyanandaji, who has written a commentary, take Prabhu here, the sense of the Lord, in the sense of the self, the Atman, your own Atman, which is the universal Atman, which is the true self. Not in the sense of the personal God, not in the sense of Ishvara or God as the Lord of the universe, but the Lord of the self who is the Lord. Why do they take Prabhu as... Prabhu normally means God, or it actually means master or Lord, but it's used for God. One of the many names that God is addressed is Prabhu, as you know. So why do they take it in the sense of the self, the Atman here? Because he'd just been talking about the one seated in the city of 9 gates, the body of 9 gates. And so the one seated in this, again, here it doesn't use in the Gita, he doesn't use the word city. He says the embodied soul seated in this of 9 gates. But 9 gates, what has 9 gates? A city has 9 gates, or a city of that time, or of whether in Europe or in India or in China, it doesn't matter. The city is with the walls around them for protection, with the gates in the city. So the city of 9 gates. So we've just been talking of the one who sits within the city of 9 gates. And so now he speaks about the Lord. And so it means the Lord who is seated in the city of 9 gates. That is the self, the Atman, not God. So here it says, Nakartritvam nakarmani lokasya srujati prabhuhu. So the Lord, that is the self, does not create the agentship or any of the actions, karmani, the actions of the world. So the Lord seated within the body, that is your own self, that's who you really are, doesn't create actions, nor does it create agentship. For anyone, lokasya, for anyone. Na karma phalasam yogam, nor the connection between the action and its results. Karma phalasam yogam, the joining of action to its phala, to its fruit. So whenever we do any action, there are results of the action. There are results in the sense that if I build a table, there's a table which results from it. But more important for me, there are the karma phalas. There are the results of the karma, the way that it affects me. The results within my own psychology, and also the good and bad fruits of what I did. If I do something good, I get a good fruit. If I do something bad, I get a bad fruit. That is a result of my karma. And so that, what's more, the karma phala here is not referring to the physical thing that's built in an action like building a table, but 2 things. One is the result, the psychological result within me, how it affects me. And the other is the cosmic result, which comes to me later. That is, if I do any action, there is a cosmic result that comes back to me later. So if I do a good action later, that good will come to me at some time or another, either immediately or after a long time. And if I do something bad, the bad result will come to me either immediately or after a long time. So that's the cosmic result. That is, when I do an action, it leaves a memory in the universe, in the cosmic mind, where something in the outer universe is going to come back to balance the action which I have done. And then there's the result inside of me. So the karma phala, or here it's just phala. He's making a distinction between karma and the karma's phala. So the phala, the fruit of the action, the result of the action, that again for our purposes is twofold, which are important for us. The psychological result. Every action we do, it makes some memory in the mind, which spurs us on either to act again or to avoid acting again. And also the cosmic result, that which causes the universe to balance my action. If I do something good, a good comes back to me. If I do something bad, bad comes back to me. So, as he translates here, the self does not create agentship or any objects of desire for anyone, nor association with the results of actions, but it is nature that acts. I didn't have the time today. I would like to have looked up in Sri Ramanuja's commentary, who's a devotional commentator, whether he takes Prabhu in this sense. I doubt that he does. He probably takes Prabhu in the sense of Ishvara, of God. That is, that God does not create agentship or any objects of desire for anyone. That comes swabhavastu pravartate, but it comes from nature. From the nature of things, swabhava, from the nature of things. But again, all of the Advaita commentators, and even someone like Swami Tapasyanandaji, our Swami who passed away a number of years ago, he tended towards a devotional interpretation of everything. But this, he says that obviously he's talking about the self, the Atman, not God. So I'll look up later to see, or want to look up later to see if Ramanuja interprets this similarly, but he must interpret Prabhu as God, as Ishvara. So the idea here, the self does not create agentship or any objects of desire for anyone, nor association with the results of action. That is, the connection between me, the self, and me, the agent, and the result of action. That's not the self that creates those. That is, the self is uninvolved in action. So why again does he talk about this here? It's because he's been speaking about the state of the karma yogi, the person who has attained to a high state through karma yoga. And so he's explaining the basis for that experience of the karma yogi, that because the self is not involved in any action, the self doesn't create action, the self doesn't create the results of action. The self is ever free in itself. It remains in its own glory. Just as the sun, it's because of the sun's light that everything here on earth takes place, all life. The energy that we have, the energy that we expend in our bodies, the energy that we expend in our minds, where did that come from? It all came from the sun. The sun is shedding its energy on the earth, giving heat and light. And some of that light is taken up by plants through photosynthesis, stored as energy within the plant. Animals eat the plants, and people eat the plants, and people eat animals who have stored the energy of the plants. So, but it all comes back from the sun. But the sun is not doing anything. It's because of the very presence of the sun that life takes place on the earth. The sun is there in its own luminous glory, self-luminous glory, just shining. And everything here takes place because of the presence of the sun. But the sun does nothing. And so it's in the light of the self that everything takes place. But the self is not the doer of anything. And so that's why he's making this distinction, because it explains the nature of the karma yogi's realization. So again, this last part, the last foot in the Sanskrit, swabhavastu pravartate, but out of its own nature, that is, its own nature, not the nature of the self, but out of the nature of this world, the body and mind and the world around us, they go on in their own way. that it's Prakriti, nature, and the comprehensive sense of nature that's used in Vedanta or in all of Hinduism. Or again, in the West, we have the modern sense of nature, where nature means everything except for human beings and what human beings have done. So buildings and electrical current and microphones and plastic buckets, none of that is nature. Nature is what is untouched by human beings. But no, the sense of nature in our tradition is nature means everything. Everything that can be objectified, everything that can be experienced. All of that is nature. Human beings are not outside of nature. Human beings are very much part of nature. Just as the anthill is not, we don't think of the anthill as something unnatural. We don't think of the bird's nest as something unnatural. And so even the smog and the ugly factories and the destruction of the earth by various extractive industries and so forth, that also is part of nature, because we are part of nature. So it doesn't mean that it's a part of nature we want to encourage, but it is nature, because you can't make, that's an artificial separation that we make in the West as far as nature goes. So it's through the nature of things that action takes place and that karma functions. So that's the idea here. Then it goes on to verse 15, continuing the same thought. Nadatte kasyachit papam na chaiva sukritam vibhuhu ajnanena vritam jnanam tena muhyanti jandavaha. Now here, instead of Prabhu, he mentions Vibhu, which means the all-pervading one. And for some reason, I'm not at all convinced. Madhusudana says that here, Sri Krishna is talking about God, Ishvara. The Vibhu, the all-pervading one, means Ishvara. But I see no reason whatsoever to take the previous one as the self and this one as Ishvara. Both should be taken as the self. There's no distinction made here which says that Vibhu should be different from Prabhu. That is the all-pervading one, because the Atman is all-pervading, as is God, but the Atman is all-pervading. And so just speaking about Prabhu, not causing this nor causing that, why should we suddenly switch to Ishvara, to God, to the Lord of the universe? So what it says is, Nadatte kasyachit papam. Vibhu, the all-pervading one, doesn't accept the sins of anyone. Nachaiva sukritam vibhu, nor does Vibhu, the all-pervading one, accept the good actions of others. So the self neither accepts the sins nor the punya, the merit of good actions. It doesn't accept either one. Ajnanena vritam jnanam. But the knowledge is covered by ignorance. Knowledge is covered by ignorance. Tena muhyanti jandavaha. By that, all beings are deluded. All beings, including us, are deluded because our knowledge, our understanding is covered over by ignorance. That's why we become deluded. And therefore we think that I am papi, I am a sinner, I am a good person, I am a bad person, because my understanding has been covered over by ignorance. So let me say a few words about ignorance. So this will be a little technical. So if it neither makes sense nor has any value for you, that's okay. You don't, no one needs it. But for those who like to understand the philosophy behind things, the understanding behind things, then it has value. In Vedanta, there's said to be two types of ignorance. First, there is that ignorance which covers knowledge. But then there's ignorance which projects a wrong vision of things. So in general in Vedanta, it's considered that ignorance in the spiritual sense doesn't mean lack of knowledge. I don't know Swahili. I knew a few words of it actually, but I've forgotten them because I went to Kenya. And I have a good friend who is from, not from Kenya, but from Uganda. He's actually a Buddhist monk, the first black African Buddhist monk, ordained Buddhist monk there are here in the States. And he started the first Buddhist monastery and meditation center in Uganda. A very fine man, and a young man. So from him, I learned a few words of Swahili when I was in Kenya with him. But back to the point, I don't know Swahili, and so you say I'm ignorant of Swahili. But that's an absence of knowledge. That's a different type of ignorance. I don't know Romanian. Not a single word of Romanian. I'm ignorant of Romanian, but that means that I am absent of knowledge of Romanian. But spiritual ignorance is not that. It's not an absence of knowledge. Spiritual ignorance means, first of all, that my knowledge of the self is covered over. The knowledge of the self has been hidden. It can't be completely hidden because that's who we are. I know that I am. I know that I am, and I know that I know. But I don't know who I am. I don't see clearly who I am, but I know that I am. So I'm not completely ignorant. But who I am has been covered over. And not only that, but then I think that I'm this body and mind. And so a false vision has been projected. So the idea is that I can't think a wrong thought about who I am until my real nature has been covered. So first there's the covering, what's called, you don't need to remember these terms, but what is called in technical terminology, avarana shakti of avidya. That is the covering power of ignorance. So the various analogies are given. If at twilight, when there's enough light to see forms, but it's getting dark to where I don't see them clearly, I see the stump of a tree, but I'm not sure what it is. And so I think, oh, somebody is sitting over there. There's somebody sitting over on that. And we've all had this sort of experience in the half dark where we see something and we misidentify it. I can't misidentify the stump if I see it clearly. First, the stump its identity has to be covered by darkness. It's only when the stump's identity is covered by darkness that then I can think, oh, that's my friend sitting over there. I was going to see him, I was going over to his house to talk to him, and he's sitting right there. Well, no, he's not sitting right there, it's the stump of a tree. But I can think it's my friend because first the identity of the stump has been covered, and then I can project another vision onto it, a wrong vision onto it. And so that is called vikshepa shakti, projecting a wrong vision onto something. But that depends on avarana shakti, the covering power of ignorance. So these two powers of ignorance are what we experience here. First, I'm not aware of who I am. But then, because I'm not aware of who I am, then I project a wrong vision of who I am. I think that I'm this body and mind. I think that I'm subject to birth and death, that I'm miserable. I do good things, I do bad things. I'm suffering from the consequences of karma, and so forth. So so here when it says the omnipresent Lord, and again, it should be the omnipresent self, certainly neither accepts anybody's vice nor virtue. Knowledge remains covered by ignorance. Thereby the creatures become deluded because their knowledge is covered, and then they can project all sorts of wrong views of things. When you go to sleep and dream, you can't dream until you fall asleep. So falling asleep is the covering over your ordinary knowledge, your ordinary awareness. You have to fall asleep first, and then you can project a dream world. You can't project a dream world out of nothing. You can't be looking at all of this and suddenly you start dreaming. No, you have to first forget this. This has to be covered over by a veil of ignorance when you fall asleep. That's why you never remember going to sleep. You remember time in bed before you go to sleep. You remember trying to go to sleep. But when you wake up, maybe you wake up after half an hour or something where the memory of trying to go to sleep is still fresh in your mind. You try to remember, well, how did I go to sleep? You never know how you went to sleep. If you were aware of going to sleep, you wouldn't go to sleep. First, you have to forget. You have to go into a state of complete forgetfulness where you don't know anything, and then you lapse into sleep. It's said to be the same with death. You can't die until there's a moment of forgetfulness. You die when suddenly you forget, and then you let go of this world. Even if you're hit by a truck and you die in a moment, there has to be that moment of forgetfulness that the truck knocks into you, and then you die. And so both with sleep and with death, you can't go to sleep, nor can you die until there's a moment of forgetfulness. And you can't dream, you can't go to sleep and then dream without that moment of forgetfulness, that covering, and then you create a whole world out of the mind. And when you die, there's a moment of forgetfulness where you leave the body, and then a vision of a new world opens up to you. So it's that covering which is necessary before there can be another experience. So the omnipresent Lord, and again, in the interpretation of most, and I certainly would take that interpretation here, I would differ with Madhusudana, the omnipresent self, certainly neither accepts anybody's vice nor virtue. That is, you, the self, you who you really are, the true self, is not affected by virtue or vice. Now, that doesn't mean that you can do whatever you like and say that, well, I'm the self, I'm not touched by virtue and vice. No. If you have any sense of agentship, if you have any sense that I'm doing this, the law of karma is going to work, and you're going to have to reap the fruits of karma. But one day we will wake up and realize, I never did anything. Karma pertained only to the body and mind, and I was never the doer. I was never caught by experience. That was all something which was just a dream which happened within the light of my awareness. Then we can truly say, I do nothing. I have no sin, I have no virtue. I am the light which is beyond, not below both. That's a mistake that we often make in thinking of non-dualistic experience. We think that if I'm beyond virtue and vice, then it's somehow a state where as a neutral state. No, it's not a neutral state. It's a state of ultimate, infinite knowledge, infinite bliss, infinite fulfillment, outside of time. So there's no end to it. Time itself stops. Swami Aseshananda, the great disciple of Holy Mother who used to live up in Portland, he was fond of saying, like many Swamis, I'm sure it's beginning to happen to me too, after many years of teaching, they begin to repeat the same things over and over again. And so Swami Aseshananda would often say, time must have a stop. Time must have a stop. And that's true. We don't understand that now because we can't imagine time stopping. If time stops, then what is there? Then everything is there. Then everything is there. But time must have a stop. So the self neither accepts sin nor accepts virtue, because the self is free from both. The self does nothing. The self is the light in which everything takes place. And if I can identify with that, then I'm free. I'm completely free. And identify with that means if I recognize that that is what I am. In the school of Kashmir Shaivism, which is a form of non-dualism, a very beautiful school of non-dualism, they have the term pratyabhignya, which means recognition, pratyabhignya. Recognition. So they call realization or enlightenment, they call it recognition. That is, and that's what it is in non-dualistic Vedanta. Recognition that this is who I always was, but somehow I didn't see it. It was a reality all along. It was right there. And somehow I didn't see it. Somehow I had all of these delusions about being a little person running around doing little things. So again, as Swami Vivekananda used to say, Sister Nivedita said that Swamiji would say with great pathos that man, the infinite dreamer, dreaming finite dreams. That we're the infinite dreamer, and yet we're dreaming these little finite dreams. So we can begin by dreaming big, but eventually we will not dream, but we will be the infinite without end, without limitation. So the omnipresent self certainly neither accepts anybody's vice nor virtue, or neither accepts its own vice or virtue. Knowledge remains covered by ignorance. Thereby creatures become deluded. So 16 says, Jnanena tu tarajnanam yesham nashitamatmanaha tesham adityavajnanam prakashayati tatparam. So all of these verses are very beautiful and famous verses. Jnanena tu tarajnanam yesham nashitamatmanaha. For those, yesham, for those whose ajnana, whose ignorance, for those whose ignorance, nasitam, has been destroyed jnanena, by knowledge, for those whose ignorance has been destroyed by knowledge, tesham aditya vajnanam prakashayati tatparam. For them, their jnanam, their knowledge, for them their knowledge, their experience is adityavad, is like the sun. Their knowledge is like the sun, prakashayati tatparam, which illuminates the Supreme. So as he translates it here, but in the case of those of whom that ignorance is destroyed by the knowledge of the self, jnanam atmanaha, knowledge of the self, that knowledge of theirs, tesham, like the sun, adityavad, reveals the sun, prakashayati tatparam, it reveals the Supreme. So, but in the case of those whose ignorance is destroyed by the knowledge of the self, that knowledge of theirs, like the sun, reveals the Supreme. That is, there's the full experience. That's why Swami Vivekananda used to say that if there is a soul, I must realize the soul. If there is God, I must realize God. What is the use of a conceptual God? What is the use of a hidden God who's never seen? Good for God, bad for us. So what's the use of such a God? Who wants such a God? There's no use to such a God. If God is eternally hidden, then there's no use to him. Let him go live in his own glory. Better that we forget about him. But no, the infinite is revealed, is illuminated in direct experience, where one knows that I am the infinite. I'm one with God. I'm one with the Lord of the universe. So that is the state of illumination. To those whose ignorance is destroyed by the knowledge of the self, that knowledge of theirs, like the sun, reveals the Supreme. And then in verse 17 it says, Tad buddhayas taratmanas tannishthas tatparayanaha gatyandya punaravrittim jnana nirdhuta kalmashaha. This also is a famous verse. Tad buddhayas, those whose buddhi, whose intellect, but again, as I've said many times, intellect is a poor translation. It means the intuitive, highest faculty of the mind, that which gives intuitive, direct, certain knowledge. The lower mind, which we're used to operating through, the manas, that gives doubtful knowledge. Maybe it's so, maybe it's not. We can doubt everything that the manas says in experience. But the buddhi is that which gives certainty. This is true. This is true. And so those whose the intuitive faculty of their mind is absorbed in that is in that truth. Taratmanas, those for whom their self has become that. Now, the self is already that, but those whose self has become that means that they know that that is myself, that is who I am. We are that also, but we don't know it. So tadatmanas, those whose self has gone to that, means those who have realized that that is their self. Tannishthas, those whose commitment is to that, their conviction is that, their commitment is that, those who are fully committed to that. Tatparayanaha, those for whom that is their highest goal. Those for whom that truth is their highest goal. Gachanti apunaravrittim, they attain to non-return. That is, they don't have to be born anymore. Jnana nirdhuta kalmasha, those who have become washed clean by knowledge, those who have been fully purified of evil, fully purified of all dirt of the of ignorance through knowledge. So as he translates it here, those who have their intellect absorbed in that, whose self is that, who are steadfast in that, to whom that is the supreme goal, they attain the state of no return, their dirt having been removed by knowledge. How is dirt removed by knowledge? As darkness is removed by light. It's not that the knowledge comes and sweeps away the dirt and puts it somewhere else, puts it in the cosmic trash can. No, it doesn't go anywhere. Just as darkness is illuminated by light. If you go into, as Swami Vivekananda says, if you go into a room or a cave that has been dark for thousands of years, has never seen the light, and you illuminate it, the darkness is gone in a moment. You don't have to do anything else. The darkness doesn't go anywhere. The darkness disappears. Only light remains. And so, for those who have their buddhis, their hearts, the highest part of their mind, absorbed in that, who have known their self to be that, who are steadfast in that, to whom that is the highest goal, this is what happens. They attain to the state of no return, their ignorance having been, or the dirt of their minds and hearts having been washed away by knowledge, but washed away in the sense that darkness is washed by light. So that is something we should always remember. That no matter how difficult the spiritual life seems, spiritual life is no more difficult than ordinary life. Ordinary life, look at how difficult ordinary life is. Terribly difficult ordinary life. We come to spiritual life and we're thinking that spiritual life is going to bring us infinite bliss and infinite knowledge. Well, yes, it will, but not easily. And so we think spiritual life is hard. But no, it's no harder than ordinary life. Ordinary life is so difficult. It's just that ordinary life seems to offer the promise that, well, these are little problems, I'll get over them. You've never gotten over them. Nobody has ever gotten over them. You never will get over them. There's little problems. You solve little problems and there are 10,000 more little problems that are chasing after you. And that's the way life goes on. And so spiritual life, the difference between spiritual life and ordinary life is that spiritual life promises the final solution to the problems of life. It promises infinite knowledge, infinite bliss, infinite freedom without end. But yes, it's difficult to get there. But if you're moving towards it, you're doing much better than if you're just staying here in this round of life. So, gachanti apunaravrittim, they attain to non-return. That also sounds scary to many people at first. They think that, but what else is there? I don't want to just disappear. I want to keep coming back. There's so many things I want to do, so many things I want to see. Fine. If you want to, you will come back, guaranteed. If you want to come back, guaranteed you will come back. So don't worry. Nobody's going to take this away from you. Nobody's going to take it away from you. Nobody can take it away from you. If it's what you want, it's what you'll keep getting over and over and over again. Over and over and over and over again. Thousands of lifetimes, tens of thousands of lifetimes, the same eating and drinking, the same laughter and tears, the same momentary joys and long-term regrets. All of that will continue forever. Without end, it'll continue as long as you want it. But a time comes when we begin to realize that I've had enough. I don't want this. I don't want this. I want something else. Then that's when real spiritual life begins. That's when real spiritual life begins. When we realize that, in the world in terms of itself, there's no escape. There's no escape within the world in its own terms. I have to find something which is beyond the world, something which takes me outside of the world, something. And the good news is that reality is that. This is not the reality. This is not the reality. If we have even a tiny glimpse of that, then all of this seems like ash. All of this seems unreal. We see that it's unreal. But it's because we don't have that to compare with that this seems so intensely real. This seems so intensely real. But if we get even a glimpse of that, we see that no, this is nothing. When I was a kid, one of my best friends' mother, one day I was talking to her. Her mother was very fond of me, and so she was the first person, this woman, the mother of my friend, first adult who really talked to me like an adult. That's all of us. There's a time when suddenly somebody talks to us as another adult, and we're shocked. Nobody ever talked to me like an adult before. What's going on? I remember growing up in the deep South, where people even now oftentimes say "sir," not common up in the North so much, but say "sir." The first time when I was a kid, I remember I was about 11 or 12 years, and some younger kids started addressing me as "sir." I was so shocked. So by this time, the story I'm telling, I was 16, and so this woman started talking to me as an adult. So one day she told me that my friend so-and-so tells her children that life is very hard. Life is really, really hard. It's not fun. Life is not fun. It's hard. You better get used to it. And that is so wrong. And I thought in my own mind, yes, that is so wrong, because life is not like that. She shouldn't be telling her kids a lie like that life is hard. I mean, life isn't hard, life is wonderful. But my friend's mother said, these people shouldn't tell their kids that life is so hard, that it's very difficult, that it has so many difficulties and everything. It's not really a happy place, because they'll find out soon enough themselves. I thought, what? What do you mean? So a time comes when, yes, we realize that life is not a lot of fun. Yes, there are good times. Yes, there are things that are interesting. So Vedanta doesn't pour a bucket of cold water on everything and say that everything is miserable. No, there are good times, there are bad times. But the amount of good as opposed to the amount of bad is very small, very small. And even that good, there's anxiety about losing it. I knew somebody that when he would go on vacation, he'd go on a week's vacation with his family. They'd rent a house at the beach and take the whole family there for a week. It was a yearly family reunion. And he would walk into the house that they had just rented for the family. He'd walk into the house and say, "Oh my God, on Sunday we're going to have such a time cleaning this place up." You just got there. You're there for a week of vacation, and already he's thinking about, "Oh my God, on Sunday we're going to have such a time trying to clean this place up. Oh my God." So even in our good times, we may not go to that extreme, but there's that anxiety about even the good times. And so spiritual life is the optimistic life, because it says that there is a way out of all of this. There is a way to go beyond it. And yes, that's difficult. And not many in any one generation in the whole world, not many attain to it fully in this life while living. There are always some. It's interesting that in the Jewish tradition also there's the idea that there are always, at any one time in the world, there are a few, I forget, they even named the number, something like 12 wise ones. And that's what keeps the world going. Because if it weren't for those wise ones who were fully aware of the highest truth, then the world would dissolve into chaos. And so in the Hindu tradition as well, it's believed that there are always some fully illumined souls at any one time in the world. The world is never absent them. And sometimes there are more, sometimes there are less, but there are always some. But admittedly, there are never many. It's not that you meet to realize souls on the street corner or in every temple or church. They're few and far between. So then the idea comes, well, if it's so difficult to attain and so few people attain it, what is the use? No, the use is great. The use is great even though full attainment is rare. Because for one thing, it is possible. For another thing, that every step we take in that direction, we find that our life is better. Our life is better. The quality of our mind is better. The quality of our heart is better. Our understanding is better. The clarity of mind is better. And so for every step that we take, we're improving. We don't often feel that because where we want to go seems so far away that we're only aware of how far I am from it. But no, if we look realistically at our lives, we'll find that we've come a long way by whatever steps we've taken on the spiritual life, and that has improved our lives a great deal. And then the other, even more positive thing to remember is that many, many people, by the time they come to the end of their lives, then many of the things which seemed impossible at the end of life, then things are opened up to them. And so if we're trying now, there's a possibility that we'll attain to the highest here and now. Even ordinary people have attained to that. But even if we don't attain to that, we are improving. We're going forward. Our life is becoming better. The quality of our life is becoming better, not financially, not comfort-wise, but the inner quality of our life is becoming better. And that many people at the end of their life, because they have striven, because they have tried to awaken, at the end of their life they do awaken. And even if they don't awaken fully at that time, they're reborn in very propitious circumstances, as Sri Krishna will tell Arjuna, and as many great sages have said, that they're born in propitious circumstances, where they don't have to go through all of the struggles that they had in this life. I had a friend who passed away, was it a year ago or so? 2 years ago, sometime a year or two ago. Must be a couple of years ago. He had been a brahmachari, an American, a brahmachari of the order, and then he left as a brahmachari, got married, had a child, but remained a very good devotee. And he had cancer the last 5 years or so of his life, and he knew that he tried various treatments, including experimental treatments, got better, but he knew that eventually that something was not going to work, and so he had a long time to think about his own death. So he actually wrote a book to himself. With the idea that it was, let me not waste all of the time I wasted in this life. Let me write a book to myself with the conviction that somehow in my next life I will find this book, read it, and awaken earlier and begin my spiritual life earlier. So whether that happens or not, who knows? But the idea is good, that he wanted, let me not waste so much time in my next life. That I know that I haven't come to the end. I still have a path to follow. But I know, now I've come to a point of understanding what the path is and how to follow it. Now it's just a question of following it. Let me start out my next life with that understanding. So he wrote a book which he addressed to himself, which right now I have the duty of reading 2 of the chapters to correct any mistakes in his understanding of Vedanta. His wife asked me to do that for him. So anyway, the gacchantya punaravrittim, they attain to non-return. That's a wonderful idea. At first a scary idea, because this is all that we know. And not coming back here, losing this, we're losing everything that we know. But eventually we realize that no, that is what I want. That is what I want. Not because I don't like people, not because I hate everybody, not because I hate the world, but no, because I know that there is the realm of truth, the realm of eternal existence, infinite infinite knowledge, infinite bliss. I want to go there. And if I really want to help anyone here, it's by going there. It's by going there. The greatest blessings to humankind are those who have attained to that. They are the greatest blessings. Look at the difference between a Bill Gates or a Warren Buffett and a Jesus or a Buddha. And we don't need to go to special world teachers who are in a class by themselves, but saints like St. Francis of Assisi and other great saints. What a huge difference there is between, so no criticism of Bill Gates or Warren Buffett, but they're nothing compared to a St. Francis of Assisi or another great saint, Tukaram, Namdev, or various saints. Nothing compared to them. So even if we want to do good to the world, the greatest good we can do is by attaining to that. So let's take one more verse and then I'll ask if there are any questions. Number 18. Vidya vinaya sambhanne brahmane gavihastini shuni chaiva shwapake cha pandita samadarshinaha. So this also is a very, very famous verse and one that Swami Vivekananda was very fond of also. It's a very beautiful verse that the Pandita, here he's not speaking of scholars, the usual meaning of Pandit, but those who have known the truth, the real Pandit, those who have known the highest truth. Samadarshinaha, the Panditaha, the knowers of the highest truth, who are Samadarshinaha, who see sameness everywhere. Who see sameness everywhere means what? Everything sort of fades into just a gray, which is uninteresting? No. They see the same infinite reality everywhere. Where do they see it? Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane. In a holy Brahmin, a holy man who has attained to humility through knowledge. Vidya vinaya sampanne, who has attained to the humility through knowledge. That is the knowledge which gives humility, true knowledge, which doesn't puff one up with pride, but what makes one a worshiper of that in everyone. So the true wise people who see sameness everywhere, they see that in the holy person, Gavi, they see it in a cow. Hastini, they see it in an elephant. Shuni, they see it in a dog. And Shwapakecha, they see it in the eater of a dog. That is a Chandala, a pariah or Chandala, the eaters of dog meat. So one sees it in a holy Brahmin, one sees it in those whom society looks on as the very lowest. Sees the same reality in everyone. They see no distinction between Brahmin and Chandala. They see no difference between an elephant, a dog, and a Brahmin or a Chandala. They see the same reality everywhere. Everything they see with the same light of reality shining in everything, with the same infinite value in everything. So the learned ones see the same Brahman in a Brahmin endued with learning and humility, in a cow, in an elephant, and even in a dog, as well as in an eater of dog's meat. So they see the same reality in everyone. Once the Holy Mother was telling Jnana Maharaj, one of her disciples, a brahmacharin at that time, not to be cruel to animals. And she said that even in the cat I am there. And on a similar occasion, she said, I'm present even in ants crawling on the ground. I am present even in ants. So she had that. She saw in her devotee, the Muslim devotee, Amjad, who was a thief and probably had murdered various people also because he was a dacoit. But she treated him the same as she treated Swami Sharadanandaji, the great disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. So she saw the sameness in everyone. So Holy Mother was a perfect example of this same-sightedness, who saw the same reality everywhere and saw that that was her own reality. She saw the whole world as her own, as she taught us to do in her famous last words. So this is a very beautiful verse. The learned ones see the same Brahman in a Brahmin endued with learning and humility, in a cow, in an elephant, and even in a dog, as well as in an eater of dog's meat, a Chandala, Shwapaka. So that's what we want to attain. That you see the expansion of this idea and the social implications in Swami Vivekananda's 2 lectures, beautiful lectures, given in England, one called Vedanta and Privilege and another called Privilege. Vedanta and Privilege and the other called Privilege, both given in England. Very beautiful lectures on the implications of this idea. So let me see if there are any questions or comments before we close. Yes. Oh, just a minute. He's going to get a microphone because this is recorded and then put on the internet for people so that such people can hear the question also. He's got it. It's coming. So just speak into the mic.
Swamiji, I have this question about sloka number 13.
13, okay.
First, Sukhang Bodhasi. What does Sukhang means? Tangible thing.
Okay, let me get back to the verse and get back into context. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vashi. So here, sukham, happiness, refers to the next line, really. So the dehi navadware pure. Oh, I'm sorry, I said that there was not city here. City is quite clearly here. Navadware pure dehi. The embodied soul dwells in the city of 9 gates. When commenting on it at the beginning of this class, my eyes passed over the obvious that he does mention city, the city of 9 gates. So sukham here means, here sukham, happiness, is used actually as an adverb, which is consistent with Sanskrit grammar. So it means he lives happily in the city of 9 gates. So the person who has attained to self-control lives happily in the city of 9 gates. We don't live happily in the city of 9 gates. We have complaints about everything. That this is painful, that, I've got an ache here, I've got an ache there, this is bothering me, that's bothering me, this person is bothering me, that person is bothering me. But the person of perfect self-control is bothered by nothing, because their mind has become steady. And so they live happily, sukham. They live in the city of 9 gates. Okay? Any other question? Sanchali. Just reach back there and get there you go, Sanchali, yes.
Maharaj, 2 questions. One is, you mentioned about the Swami who said time must stop. So when he refers to time must stop, does that mean like when a person attains the ultimate realization or goes into samadhi, that's when time just stops?
That's the only time stops, is in the ultimate realization. Even in a high realization, but not the highest, there's an extremely subtle sense of time where we feel that time has practically stopped. And the time of this universe has practically disappeared. So one can remain in that state for a long time without having any sense of time passing. But there is still a very subtle sense of time. But in the very highest, time disappears completely. There is no time. It's not the sense of time disappears. Time itself doesn't exist, because time is the perception of change. And there where there is no change, there is no time. Time exists only where there's change. But when there's no change, there's no time.
Another quick question. Was this original written in Sanskrit?
Yes, you mean the commentary. Yeah, the commentary was in Sanskrit, yes. Madhusudana Saraswati, he was a great saint himself and a very great Sanskrit scholar with vast knowledge. And he was one of the later commenters as far as the traditional commentators go. He lived in the 14th or 15th century, I think it was, 15th century. And but a very man of great knowledge. And he wrote other books as well, Advaita Siddhi. In fact, in one of the coming verses in his commentary, he says, for further elaboration, see Advaita Siddhi. So he refers us to his other book, one of his other books. He was a great scholar of Navya Nyaya, the logic, system of logic. And also, I'll just finish with this and then we'll close, that his story is interesting because he was a Vaishnava. He was a follower of the Vaishnava tradition, dualist worshiper of Sri Krishna. And he went to Benares to study Advaita so that he could defeat the Advaitavadins. So he'd argue against them and defeat them. You can't defeat another's arguments unless you know their arguments. So he went to study Advaita for that. And when he studied Advaita, he saw, no, this is the truth. And then he became an Advaitin. But he never lost his devotion. So one of the beautiful things about his writings is that they're both full of the highest knowledge, but full of devotion as well. So, let me give a closing chant and then announcements. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat. That infinite reality is full, perfect, and complete. This relative universe is full, perfect, and complete. From out of the fullness of that infinite reality, the fullness of this universe has come, and yet that remains ever the same. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all the beings of the universe. Okay, so for announcement.